Today I'm talking to Dr. Judy Hale, who has more than 40 years' experience in certification and performance consulting. She has written many books and articles over her illustrious career in performance improvement. And I'm happy to introduce you today at our International Society for Performance Improvement conference in Seattle and Washington. Welcome, Judy, and thank you for taking the time to talk to us.
Thank you.
Judy, I have a couple of questions that I'd like to raise with you. The first question I'd like to ask you is, why is certification vital in any profession, especially in emerging economies?
Well, certification provides an alternative path, one, to develop capability and prove you're capable beyond the traditional academic path. And in emerging economies, the traditional path is frequently unattainable, overly expensive, but frequently it's even missing. The other phenomena is we're seeing that we're certifying like 1 million people a year now, and many of those are because they are, corporations in particular, are implementing certification to show that their people, one, are focused on the skills and knowledge they need for their work. Associations are doing it because they want to qualify people in the competencies relevant to their mandate, vision, or mission. So those are two big reasons. Now, certifications can be focused. They can actually be scaled for developmental reasons. You can be certified at an entry level, an intermediate, and then advanced level. And they allow, particularly in emerging economies, they drive, if you will, not only the desired behaviors, but they recognize people who really achieve it. And they can be, because they're scalable, they're much more attainable. And you're not engaged in developmental activities not relevant or tangential to what the work really is.
Judy, and then if we have to talk a little bit about CPT, the certification for performance technologists, why do you think that is also so relevant in emerging economies for practitioners?
Well, I think the CPT, the reason it is relevant, particularly in emerging economies, that just like what I was talking about, it can be focused. You can earn that designation because what you're doing is accommodating, relevant to what an emerging economy means. There's a second standard, it's called systemic view. And that means that you look at where you are, what's relevant, what are the constraints, and you have to adapt your approach to those realities. It's very easy to consult when you have all the time and all the money and things like that, but that's not real. So the CPT allows somebody who wants to get that certification to say, I work in this world and I have to adapt to this world. Now that doesn't mean you make it easy, but you have to be sensitive to what the constraints are within that environment. And they can be time, it can be money, they can be cultural, they can be access to other resources. There's a lot of different things. So I think the CPT, let me back up. A lot of certifications presume a pristine world. They do not reflect the real world. And the CPT is portfolio based. In other words, you earn it because of work that you've done in real world circumstances. And therefore you can adapt that to what those circumstances are. I'm not being judged based on some other model that doesn't work in this world.
Thank you, Judy. The last question I'd like to ask you is, on a scale of 1 to 10, how important is having certified institutions in addition to certified practitioners? Now, in South Africa and Southern Africa, we have institutions like the Institute for People Management, and they have thousands of practitioners in HR and OD and learning and training. And so how relevant would it be for an institution like that to be certified?
Well, that's a very interesting question. My bias is it's very important. Now, you want to give that an 8, 9, 10, I don't care where you put it. But what you're doing then is you're saying the institution has subjected itself to external scrutiny, and it meets standards consistently. It has its own infrastructure in place to deliver on its promise to its members. So I think what we're seeing here, and what I'm seeing more and more, I mean, I've been in business for a long time, I'm seeing an increased interest in credentialing across the board, not only of people, but of programs, of institutions, of functions, because that larger consumer or funder or whatever is starting to ask, what have you done to prove that your house is in order, that you are efficient in what you're doing, that you are delivering on your promise? These are very important things.
Yes. Judy, thank you very much. Lastly, maybe, how do you think it will add to the longevity of such a institution, and maybe the sustainability of such an institution?
Well, I think first of all, it depends upon who's doing the certification. Okay. Now, I believe that the certification of institutions should have a feedback loop, and they should guide you so that you mutually set goals of performance. That's where you get the longevity and the sustainability. If the certification is, well, you passed, or well, you failed, it isn't going to add value. So you want to look for a model of that certification that is built on continuous improvement and supports sustainability.
Judy, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it, and our viewers will be highly appreciative of
thank
your
you
time
for asking.
taking.
I appreciate it.
Thank
Amelia.
you. Thank you, Judy. Fluff that bit, but I can edit.